Okay, today we're talking about probiotics. Now this is the good bacteria that lives in our body, specifically in large concentrations in the gut, and they do a variety of things. Now before I go any further, I want to mention there are a lot of products on the market, they call them functional foods or functional beverages, where you're seeing a lot of advertisements about probiotics. And some of these are very good and some of these, maybe less so. And I think one of the big things, we hear a lot about some of the food sources like yogurt. Wonderful source in many cases of probiotic, of good bacteria. But one of the downsides to some of these, number one, is potency. Sometimes they may not have as much as we think they do. But secondly, they have a lot of sugar. And it's kind of a catch-22 here, because the probiotics are, one of the things that they do for us is they help our immune system, and they compete for space against bad bacteria. However, when you take it with a lot of sugar, well, sugar we know suppresses the immune system, and sugar actually feeds bad bacteria, or feeds yeast, for example. So it can kind of be you're taking it for the benefit, and then you're actually taking something right with it that actually works contrary to it. So sometimes some of these functional foods, you really want to understand what's the goal here, and maybe it may taste great, but it may not actually be that great a source of the probiotics. So again, let's look at what does probiotic mean. Well, it's basically, if we deconstruct the word, pro meaning for, good, and biotic meaning bacteria or life. So it's good bacteria. Some of the functions that these things provide to us are incredibly important. Number one, immune system health. They're said to comprise about 70% of our primary immune response. As I said earlier, really quickly, quite literally, they compete for space in the body with bad bacteria. So if you have a lot of good bacteria in there, it's going to kind of keep in check the bad bacteria. Some studies have shown that adults who take a daily probiotic supplement actually take fewer sick days. And in children, they have found, they were looking at daycare settings, they were looking at rotavirus, and they found that children who were taking a daily probiotic had fewer cases, and when they did get ill, they had far less severe cases. So we actually have some studies that show that a daily consumption of probiotic, again from food, from good food sources, but also from supplement, can be very beneficial. Now, as I said, there are so many products on the market now, it can be difficult to find one and make heads or tails or sense or whatever you want to say of these products. So really what I want to do today is just kind of flush out what are the three major things we want to look for when we're shopping for a probiotic. Okay, so the first one would be the total bacteria count of the supplement. So we're talking, you'll sometimes see this as colony forming units. This basically is looking at the potency. Now again, we're not talking about milligrams, we're talking about the bacteria count. So you'll typically see this represented as 1 million, 1 billion, 10 billion, 20 billion, and so forth. So the first thing we want to look at is how many active bacteria colony-forming units is in this product. Okay, so the second issue we want to look at is how many different types of bacteria do we have in the product? Now this is a pretty good example if we think of it as breeds of dogs, okay? Over the years, different breeds of dogs have been bred to have specialized functions. So you have your retrieving dogs, you have your swimming dogs, you have your hunting dogs, and so forth. Bacteria, probiotics, are much the same way. They have specialized roles in the body. Some are for repair, some are better at immune health, and so forth. So you really want a supplement that has a varying degree of these different breeds, if you will, of bacteria, so that you get all these different benefits in one product. If you get a product or a probiotic supplement that has just 1 or 2 strains, well, that's good, but it's not like having a probiotic that has 12 different strains. So you're getting kind of the specialized benefit of 12 different breeds of dog, if you will. And then the third one, and this is a little bit of a debated topic, but it has to do with the food that's along for the ride with the bacteria. And here's what I mean. The bacteria in these bottles are essentially alive, and we want to keep them that way. And so what companies will do is they'll take the bacteria and they'll add to it some food. Now in many cases they use a very complex sugar called fructooligosaccharides, or FOS, or inulin sometimes and some others. And this is done to help keep the bacteria alive and to help it colonize once you take it. Because that's what this bacteria does, is it essentially, when you swallow it, it goes past the stomach into the intestine, and this is where it actually starts to colonize. It starts to build colonies, and this is what we want. Now, some brands put a little bit more emphasis on this third criteria than others. The one I'm thinking of specifically, again, you've heard me talk about it before if you watch some of these other videos, New Chapter. New Chapter really promotes the use of whole foods along with their probiotics, and they feel that they will sacrifice bacteria count, that first issue we talked about, for better whole foods that they say keep the bacteria that much more active so that once it gets to the gut, you get almost a supercharged effect. So the three things we want to look for when we're talking about a probiotic, again, you're looking at a supplement, you see bazillion bottles on the shelf and you want to know, how do I decide? First thing you want to look for, bacteria count. I like to say, got to get over 1 billion. I'd say 1 billion up to anywhere from 1 to 20 billion is a good supplement. You see even higher counts, but those are for very specialized circumstances. I think in general, 1 to 20 for the average person is probably a good range. The second thing to look for is the variety of strains, with more generally being better. And again, think of those breeds of dogs and the specialized functions they perform. And then the third thing is, what kind of food are they using? Are they using a complex sugar, which again, some studies say that sugar can actually feed the bacteria and the yeast that's in the body, which is something we don't want to feed? Or is it using a more complex food? I want to just pick up and actually show you a few of some of my favorites out there. I mentioned New Chapters. They have a product called All Flora. Very, very good formula. I've taken it myself. Another one that I really, really like, Mega Flora from Megafood. Our dietitian here at Vital Choice swears by Mega Flora. She says it's the best product she's ever tried. Another one I really like is actually in the Vital Choice brand. We have a couple that I think are very, very solid. First, we have what's called Supremadophilus here. I'll hold it up. There you go, Supremadophilus. That has 5 billion viable cells per capsule, and it has quite a variety of different strains here. And then if you need something a little bit more potent, let's say you've been under the weather, let's say you've been on an antibiotic, studies will say you might want to supplement with a probiotic, then we have something that's a bit more potent at 35 billion. So again, it's like taking 7 of this in just one pill. So it's a much more potent product. Again, this is going to have a nice variety of different strains of bacteria, so you're getting a lot of specialized function here. So essentially, that's it. That's our discussion on probiotics. I hope you took something away with this. Next time you're at the store, you want to decide which one's the best for me. Those are the 3 criteria you really want to be aware of.